afternoon. We're just about to start. Welcome to the April EPR Women's Network webinar. We are really excited to have you today. As you join us today, if you can please just tell us your name using the chat box, where you're dialing in from, your location, city, and country. And of course, if this is your first time, just let us know that this is your first time. You can use the chat box. We'd like to hear from you, your name, your location. As we wait for the others to join us, and in the next few minutes, we're gonna start. Does anybody want to start us off? Okay. Can you all hear me? I just want to make sure that everybody can hear me. Great. Thank you, Pastor Nick. I see that you can hear me. Great. TA from Texas. Anybody else? Edith from Virginia. Great. Hi, PN. All right. I know we have a couple more folks on. If you can just tell us where you're from. All right, we're going to go ahead and start. In the interest of time, we want to be very respectful of your time. We know that today we're going to have a very amazing session. As we just a quick, overview of what to expect today. Again, this is our monthly EPR Women's Network webinar. EPR Women's Network, we are about empowering women, helping women build various skill sets, capabilities, abilities to help them excel in the workplace, in their business, wherever they find themselves fulfilling their assignment, to make sure that they're equipped to be the best at what they're trying to achieve and achieving their goals. This month, our focus is on networking for success. We know that networking is a powerful tool that some of us probably even struggle with trying to figure out. As you know, our very own Pastor Nick typically would say, the visionary of this ministry would say, your network is your net worth. It's very critical. The people you know and how you navigate through those relationships is very critical. So I have with me one of our leaders actually within the EPR Women's Network team, Edith Umole. Edith is a very dear friend of mine, first of all, but even more importantly and of benefit to you all, she is a talent and succession management lead at the World Bank Group. She has a lot of experience in this field. I have seen her not only live out successfully networking, or even just building others up, mentoring people, equipping people in this area. I've seen her live it out. I've seen her also pour into others in various avenues. She's a speaker on various platforms that all focused on helping to develop others from a career perspective, professionally and in their business. Today, I'm very excited to have Edith with us today, because I know she's loaded with a lot of great tools and tips for us to excel from the perspective of networking. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Edith.
Thank you so much, Kemi. It's such an honor to facilitate this session and really talk about one of the areas I'm very passionate about, which is networking. So I'm really glad to be here. Happy Easter to everyone. And just to get us started, I want to hear from the participant, what comes to mind? Oh, sorry, I need to get to what to expect today. So during this session, I want to cover three things: what networking is and what it's not. I'll talk about different strategies I've seen a lot of people use when it comes to networking, and then kind of spend some time on some practical tips to really help you network successfully. So those are the three things. And also, I want this to be really interactive and really hear from you. In addition to those tips, also share some of your experiences, what you've seen from a networking perspective, and what has worked for you. So this is going to be very interactive session. So looking forward to hearing from everyone. So when you think about networking, before I talk about a definition, I want to hear from us using the chat button. Or there's a to really talk about what comes to mind when you think about networking. Kemi will launch a poll. If you are driving and you cannot use the poll, you can actually use the chat functionality and also give an answer. What comes to mind when you think about networking? There are a couple of options there. Is it about getting a new job? Is it about advancing in your career? You know, for those of us who are business owners, is it really acquiring new clients, building new relationships, knowledge sharing? I want to hear from all of us. What comes to mind? What's the word, when you hear the word networking, what do you think about? How do I see the poll results?
So they're still voting. Sorry, I was trying to get off mute.
Okay.
So give me a minute. So they're still voting. I'm gonna share. I'm gonna share the results in a minute. Okay. Once we get. So I'm just seeing it populating.
It could be some and all those things, you know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Okay, so I'm going to end the polling now, just in the interest of time. If you still plan to vote, to participate in the poll, please do so now before I end it, and then I can share the results. Okay. All right. All right, let me know if you can see.
Yes, I can see that. So this is very interesting in terms of, for most of us, it's about building new relationships and friendships, advancing our career, acquiring new clients. It's kind of all of the above and more, really. And when I think about networking, for some of us, networking is not really easy. When we think of when these are the things that come to mind. And yes, you network when you want a new job. But networking, from a definition standpoint, is the act of exchanging information with people who can either help you professionally or personally. And sometimes when you think it's also like a web of people that that you have common interests and values, you share common interests and values with. But more than any other thing, as Kemi said previously, your network is your net worth. And that is one of the things you need to think about when you think about the word networking. Yes, it's about connections, it's about jobs, but it's also something that does not really come easy. It's not something that comes readily easy to a lot of us. Some of us find it really difficult to network. And that's why I want to really talk about, some of the strategies that you might want to consider to have in your toolkit when you think about networking, and when to use some of those strategies. So there are two strategies, and I'll talk about the very first one. I call it the abundance method, and by virtue of the name, or you can call it the quantity method. And this is where you attend an event and you're walking the room. You want to get to know as many people as possible. A lot of us do that when we go to conferences. You want to get as many business cards as possible. And this method is only effective if you're able to make a good first impression, particularly if it's a large event. It's very effective when you're able to, so there's something memorable about you that you leave behind with the people that you meet. And this works particularly in conferences, but I'll talk a little bit more around something to consider when you think about that. The other method that I've seen also is the quality method. It's effective in a smaller group, but I really do think when you think about networking, this strategy is the most effective be in larger or smaller groups. And the reason I say that is because you focus on a few people at a particular point in time. It also helps some of us that are, the networking doesn't come easy to, because you're focusing on one or two people at a time. And if you look at that graphic, which I found online, I think it really just helps represent, the networking again is the web of connections that you have, but you're focusing on a few at a time, either at a particular time, if it's job hunting or if you're trying to build your business. It helps with intentionality rather than when you're looking at a whole web, which is what the quantity method or the abundance method is. You're focusing on too many people and you're expending a lot more energy when you can actually take just a few at a time. So these are two strategies. Before we get further, I would like to hear from some of us on the chat. Maybe if you can talk about some of the methods you've used, which one of this you've used more than the other, or if this is new to you, you can just put that in the chat while we'll go on. So let's kind of talk about some of the tips that, come to mind to really help whatever strategy you decide to leverage. There's some of the tips I would like to share. Okay, Tia says quality method, and works best. I agree. Quality method tends to work best. But, sometimes in a conference, you probably want to, get as many business cards as possible and then go back to, using the quality method to get to know one person at a time. That's also something you can do. You can do quantity if it's a large group and you want to get to kind of just say, hi, I'm there, this is who I am and this is what I do. And then later in building the relationship further, you go with, one person at a time. Or you can decide, I've gotten all these business cards. I was at a conference in Portugal last year and I got over 60 business cards. I spent half of the time in my hotel room the night after the event, really going on LinkedIn to find these people. I can tell you, I haven't reached out to more than 5 of those people. And this is where, sometimes it's better. Quality over quantity is a better approach because then you can get to know people better. So some tips that come to mind when you think about networking. So the first, again, if you don't remember anything today, remember that your network is your network. So what does that really mean? It's really a way networking, and successful networking is when you understand your social capital. It's really about, do you understand the value of your whole network? One way I describe it is these are the people in your board. When you have a company and you have a board of directors, who are the people in your on your board of directors? That's one way to think about it. And what's the value? The second is how diverse is your network? There's something that typically happens with a lot of us. We have the same type of people in our network. And one of the tips I want to leave with us today is really think about how to diversify your network. Even as a business owner, it will be, if you have a business that you're growing, it's really thinking about, yes, I'm doing something in photography, but do you know someone in sales? Think about ways to broaden your network. The broader your network is, the more valuable you, and the more value you get out of the networks. The second tip I also want to talk about is be a giver versus a taker. When people think about networking, they're always thinking about what can I get out of a relationship. And this is, we all do it. We think about, I want to get to meet Kemi because, she does this and that. Or we have similar type of business. How I want to learn more about what she does or how she can connect me with others. But really want to encourage us today to really focus on how to be givers versus takers. And part of that is, how do you connect and build bridges within your existing network? And that would lead to creating opportunities for people within your network. And this is interesting. I found this very interesting, the piece about creating opportunities, because when we think about networking, we're thinking about the people we want to get to know. Sometimes it's also about the people we already know, about getting them to know the other people within our network. So that's one of the ways we can also be givers rather than takers. There's a book I'll recommend which really talks a lot about networking. It's Friend of a Friend by David Burkus, Burkus. And it really talks a lot about this thing around being a connector and a bridge. The third tip I want us to also kind of, I want to leave with us is, when you're networking, have a long-term view. And this is really important because a lot of times when you're networking for reasons such as, the book is called Friend of a Friend. Friend of a Friend. I will send this out in the notes. It's kind of a really good book that I've read recently on networking. Have a long-term view. 80% of the people in your network will give you the most value. So again, it comes back to the quality method. 80% of, maybe even in your job search, you're searching for new opportunities, comes from the 20% of the people you already have in your network. So invest more in creating time to not only maintain, but also build within your existing network. One tip I always say to people is, don't network with an agenda. And that is why it's important to network or create networks before you need them. This is really critical because you find that some people they only start networking when they are job searching. And, even as an HR person who is focused on talent management, I always say to people, build those networks. Get to know people within your field before there's an opportunity, you need them. And that way, even opportunities come to you before you go asking, I'm kind of job hunting, I want to do this. And when you're a connector, you're a giver, you're sharing resources, and you're kind of sharing a lot, not only sharing. So one of the things you could do is, you want to get connected to Kemi, you're connected on LinkedIn. You see an article and Kemi is into performance management, and you share that with her to say, I saw this, I thought it would be of use to you. You're building, it's an easy way to start building or even maintaining a network. There's something I want to share here that is also about connecting with your weak ties. So these are former colleagues or former classmates that you went to school with, or friend of a friend. This is where, being a connector and a bridge becomes important. I describe networking like gardening. If you don't plant seeds, you will not harvest it. So when you have a long view that those relationships or the communities you're forming, it will take a while to really harvest the results. It helps you better. The very last tip, which actually makes this whole thing easy, particularly for those of us who don't find it really easy to network, is about think about it as making connections. This would really help a lot of the introverts amongst us. It's about making connections. Even when you go to the next networking event or conference, think about ways to have meaningful connections within your network. Focus on asking for one thing at a time. So I'll give another example. I was at a conference, I think it was in March, and I met someone. I said hello to her. We kind of exchanged LinkedIn. We connected on LinkedIn. And after the event, I got back into work and I forgot all about it. And just when Kemi prompted and sent a reminder for me to prepare for this session, I realized that it would not come in here to talk about networking will be, very interesting if I don't follow some of the tips I talk about. So one of the things I did was I wrote back to this person and kind of said to her, can we have, it was great to meet her. And I promised to share some information with her. I shared it and said it would be nice to have a call or even coffee because she's based in DC. And, one of the things she said to me on the first call we had is she is so not good at networking. And the fact that I reached out to her even prompted her to remember that we had a really good connection and we had a good conversation. So one of the things we've decided to do within our field is to create a community of practice to really help people within the DC area, in our area of expertise. And so when I think about that example, it was about the connection. It's really, right now, it's not really about anything. There's nothing which we want to get from each other, but it's about making a connection that potentially can help towards, you know, a job search. It could help. We are building a new relationship, really, because if we go back to the poll, we talked about how to build new relationships. I'm going to pause here because I really want us to get into a conversation. And Kemi, if you can unmute, or if people can unmute themselves, because I really want to hear from the ladies about some of the things that comes to mind, how they've used some of these tips, which one of the tips are new to them. I kind of want us to spend a lot of time talking about the tips. Yeah.
Sounds good. If you can hear me clearly, so if you want to ask a question, please raise your hand because I'm gonna have to allow you to talk and unmute you. So if you can just raise your hand, or if you don't feel like speaking, you can definitely type your question in the chat box, and I'll be happy to articulate the question so that Edith can hear it and respond. So I think I have, okay, so we have a question. What is the book? That's friend of a friend. We'll pull the link and send and share it with you all. Let's see. Okay. All right. TA, you're unmuted. You can speak now. Okay, great.
Yeah, very good tip, and thank you so much, Edith. You know, I just wanted to comment on the one that says giver versus taker, because sincerely, most people build relationships looking at their selfish, pardon that word, interest. But it's true, if you pour into people, if you give people value before you ever need them, when you eventually need them, they will go all out because they see you as part of, a network, a part of a family, part of a relationship that has helped them, over the years. And this is the time they want to give back. This is the time they feel, okay, they have an opportunity to actually say thank you in a different way. So, but most people want to wait till the last time or, reach out just because they are looking for a job or they want those people to give them some nuggets because she's a book writer and I want to become a book writer, things like that. So, and I also like the nugget she gave us, like you saw something really nice and you thought it might be of use for this person, just send it away. That is just keeping you in her mind, and she knows that you're also thinking about her. I don't know if that makes sense, but I just wanted to process that point. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just, so if I may, this is Kemi, I'll just share a couple of things that just stood out to me. Thank you again, Edith, for these powerful tips. The one that really stood out to me was, having a diverse network. I think that is very critical. And as I was thinking about it, not only from a professional perspective or business perspective, but even in our personal lives, even in, parenting, even in, things like that, like what are we exposed to? Because if we limit ourselves to just, the people that are like us, then we limit our perspective. And just sometimes it's just about even just being culturally aware. So that really just stood out to me and really stuck with me to just really think about it from the standpoint of how do I be intentional about ensuring that, okay, while I could network a little bit more even within my current network, what are the things that I can do to ensure to be intentional about going outside of people that are like me, because I spend a lot of time with people that are like quote unquote like me. So thanks for sharing that tip.
Yeah, and that's thank you, Sister Titi and Kemi. I think it's really critical that, because I was kind of just thinking, just to call out the tips, and Ogogo, I'll come to your question in a second.
Hello, ma.
Call out the tips. One of the things I'll
At
say
all.
there is,
At all. More understand.
Sorry, if you can go on mute. Sorry, I'm gonna mute you back. Okay, got it. All right,
yeah,
we'll get well set.
it's have a diverse network. I find particularly a lot of us that are of African descent, we always gravitate towards people same as us. It's great, but you know, when you think about networking, if you need to be able to pull to the different resources that you have. I use the photography thing because there's someone I kind of found her website. Her name is Jasmine Starr. She does a lot in the social media space. And one of the things she does is, I think she started off as a photographer and now she's like a social media guru. And one of the things I found with her own experience is really building that network that goes beyond just photography into people that do event planning. The wider, it's kind of, you know, it's your web of connections. The wider your network is, it shouldn't be the same type of people or the same, because you get different resources from different people. Ogogo, on your question on networking with an agenda when you're job hunting, I think that's a clear need that you have, yeah, when that someone could have in terms of I need to get a new job. But you see, the thing is, if you start networking way before a need comes up, you're always thinking about this is an ongoing relationship building. Let's take the word networking out of it. It's the ongoing relationship building skill, life skill that you need to have. That's the way to think about networking, so that even when you are job hunting or you're unemployed, you've already built some networks and you're only going to your networks to say, hey, you know, this is kind of my situation. I'm about to start job hunting, or I'm likely going to have this, or I have this need. I want to explore a new career, or I don't have a job right now. What are some of the opportunities available? Do you know of any opportunities available? It's fine to have an agenda. I'm not saying don't have an agenda or a focus. The thing is, when you need something and you want to build the relationships, it's a bit harder. But when you build the relationships before you have a need, it's easier to say, I'm kind of in the market for a job. Does anyone know of any opportunity? Vis-a-vis, you haven't spoken to or connected with somebody in a couple of years, and out of the blue, you reach out to them and say, well, I need, I'm out of a job, or I'm looking to change careers. Now I need help. The response or the reaction is very different if you look at those two scenarios. So it's about ongoing relationship building. That's the way. Take out those, strip out that word, because I think sometimes when we think about the word networking, it kind of, you know, freaks us out or bothers us. It's about ongoing relationship building. And Lami, you had a question around how do you have a diverse network within your career? So this is, I'll kind of, again, look at another example where you probably go to the same type of conferences all the time with the same type of events, or you only hang out with people who are in your functional area of expertise. As the world is getting smaller, and you need to think about, you know, different types of industries. If you want to work in not only one type of industry, it could be people in the same functional expertise, but in different industry. What is happening there is you're bringing that diversity of industry into the relationships that you're building. And then your network should go beyond your workplace. You always need to think about it. And this is what would even help when potentially in future you're trying to job search. If your network is only about the network you have in your workplace, you put yourself at a disadvantage. So it's also about broadening beyond into different sectors and industries. Also, if you're a business owner, it's also broadening beyond the area you have a business in, because you find that, you know, a lot of business areas start to intersect at some point. So it's if you think about it that way, build networks beyond your organization, build networks beyond your business. You can even come up, when I say the word about community, it's also about that. If you attend the same type of conference, there's a particular conference I attend every year. One of the things I've said to myself is for next year, I'm not going to go to that conference anymore. You know what happens is the same people come to this conference all the time. And if you've been to 4 or 5 of them, which I have at this point, I've gotten to know the same people, and I've built, amongst them, I've become closer with 5 or 6 of those people. So I want to branch out to other conferences so that I can get to meet other people and continue to expand my web of connection. So that's kind of, I don't know if that helps, Lami. Okay, so I've talked about the tips, and just to recap again, know the value of your network. The diversity piece is very critical. Build a diverse network. Be a giver, not a taker. That is very critical. It would always help you when you're the one thinking of how do I connect the people within my existing network. The long-term view is important because you need a lot of patience in doing this. And one of the things I also say is, stay in loose touch. So we meet for the first time. You can decide that if you want to be intentional, every couple of months, you just send an email saying, oh, how are you? What's going on, within your organization, or what's going on, if it's a friendship, what's going on within your community, because you cannot create networks overnight. So just think about ways where you touch base, a couple of months, especially if at some point you're thinking of, branching out of your role. So I had a conversation with someone a few weeks ago, and we talked about, she was kind of she's thinking of branching into human resources, but she's been in the financial sector for a while. And one of the things I said to her within New York, where she lives, is look for networking events for HR people in the financial sector. So she can start attending those and building relationships. So that's kind of just an easy way. She'll get to meet people, and from that, maybe some opportunities might come, but she'll be able to have conversations with HR people within that sector. So those are just some of the very quick tips I wanted to leave with us.
Edith, can I share one tip, and I think I learned it from probably the book Never Eat Alone. Is probably where I learned it. It's been someone that has really helped me, because I'm one of those people that, when I get into a new place with a lot of people, my first reaction is not to go out, and I'm not an extrovert. I'm a very strong introvert. And one of the things that has really helped me to navigate the room, especially in the context of networking events, is making it about them. Asking questions, just making just kind of relieving myself of the pressure of trying to impress anybody, right? And just really look to be impressed. So basically, asking questions. Hey, hi, how are you? What do you do? And by the time you ask 1 or 2 questions, sometimes it just becomes this longer conversation, and you're talking about something just totally different from what you even started talking about. And just especially when you're in those settings where you're just really trying to meet a number of people. So for those of us who are out there that freeze when you think of the word networking, or you get nervous in those settings, it might be a good way to just really just give yourself a break, learn about something, just say, well, I want to do this. Obviously something interesting about almost everybody in this room. Is there something I can learn about them?
That has helped me. Yeah, thank you, Kemi, for sharing that. That's a really great point, because this is where, when I say be focused on quality over quantity, it's also that when you have meaningful conversations, not hasty introduction, it really does help. You're focused on one person, you're maintaining eye contact, you're not just scanning the room. That also, you meet someone and have that conversation around, maybe there was a topic, or, oh, hi, how are you? It's almost easier sometimes. One of the things we do really well especially in the West, is the weather is a good entry point. Yeah, so you can actually use either the weather. But one of the things I find when you're going to networking events, a lot of us do not prepare to even kind of get to have a sense of who are the people that are going to be at this conference. What are some of the topics or events, at this event? What are some of the topics that are going to be covered? When you're prepared and you actually have a sense of it, it's also an easy way to have conversations. So I meet someone and I kind of just say, it's really nice to meet you. Sometimes you also have the names of the organization. What are some of the challenges you're facing, or what are some of what's new in your organization? When you make it about them, it becomes a very, you disarm people. But when you make it about, yeah, I saw your LinkedIn profile, you work here, I would like to work there, or something like that, then people have their backs up. So thank you, Kemi, for sharing that. That's really critical. So rather than hasty introductions, have meaningful conversations. So it's about the intentionality, doing some of the research before you go to those events. But also, the piece around being a connector, sometimes it's also about even people, when you start being a connector and really thinking about how do you create opportunities for people within your network, they will create opportunities for you within their network. And then you're going to have this ripple effect of, without even trying hard to go to a networking event, you have building a new network. It's about the connection. So when, again, I'll reemphasize the fact about is connecting. Yeah. So what are some of the things that you can do fairly quickly as you get off this call today? I've kind of grouped them into two. How do you grow your network? One exercise I would suggest you do is make a list of the 10 people that are closest to you and see if they know each other. This could be, if you do it socially, you probably find that, maybe how you work, your friends are all in the same circle. Do this professionally. A list of the 10 closest, closest 10 to you, and just do that exercise. Another thing I would suggest you do is join 2 different networking groups. I'll talk about what you do when you make that list in a second, but second thing is join 2 different networking groups within the next 30 days. And practice some of those tips around being a giver rather than a taker and having the long-term view. So use that, joining the group, use those tips. The third thing is, when you join those groups, think about making some new connections in those groups. And another way to do this is, I talked about, connecting with your weak ties. That's kind of the language they use in networking. Re-engage with 2 contacts, either from a previous event or 2 contacts from a previous employer or some friends from grad school or college. Re-engage with 2 different people and start to build those relationships. So the first piece I talked about, making a list of your closest 10. When you make the list and if they do not know each other, I want to encourage us to host a dinner or a lunch, or even if it's just organize a coffee where you invite those people. Then you start becoming a connector and a bridge. This is something that I try to do. I don't do it regularly enough, but it's something that I've also set as a goal to do this year, to have 1 event every quarter where I get a couple of the people that I know together. And I'm beginning to find that, I need to even diversify my network more. But I did an event just a few weeks ago, and another friend offered to host another event just for us to get to meet her network. So this way, we're actually networking without calling it networking, and we're diversifying our networks. And this is where the diversity of networks comes to play. So questions, comments. I'm going to stop here and take more questions.
So again, if you want to speak, feel free to raise your hand and we can unmute you, or you can type in the chat box.
And I would love to hear from a lot of us. I know that, we all network in some way or the other, even if we don't call it networking. And talk about, some of the not so good networking experiences we've had. I can share a couple, but I want to hear from a lot of us.
Anybody? Okay, I think we have one hand raised. Again, we have CA. I think you can speak now.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna talk about networking from a business perspective because over the years, what I've really seen that has helped me grow my business is initially when I was building those relationships, I was just making friends. And sincerely, I can tell you my most closest friends are not really my clients. Let me put it that way. I don't know why, but I'm getting there because Edith mentioned something that says look inward, look at those relationships that you already have and try to leverage those as well. But, as a business person, I do a lot of networking. And what that has done for me over the years is the same networks that I have, even with different business ideas, I see that that same network, and connecting with some new people in their network with various different ideas, it's through the same networking I'm leveraging. So that's really, every time that I'm doing something different, I don't have to start from the scratch. I already have people that knows me, that trust me, that think I have some, integrity. And, you just make it's not easier. And I think it's the stream of life for whatever we're doing. Either you are in the, job sector, you are in the business sector. Having people you can easily connect with, people that can, that can say, oh, she added value onto me, or like you just said, it becomes difficult to sell anything or to expect anything for someone you don't even have a relationship with. It becomes so difficult. And when you need them, when you definitely need them, is know when you want to go out and build that relationship. Something has to be in place already. So thank you because the same network I can, over and over, just because they already know who you are, has really helped me. And I am taking that tip of going back to those that are really close to me that I'm not really, leveraged. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Really useful for a lot of us to know. And if you're a business owner, you can actually just start that kind of a networking branch or something where you just get a couple of people together within your community that have a similar type of business, so that you can actually, it's about share knowledge or experiences. You can actually start a networking um, you can actually start kind of create a network of people with similar interests to you. I call this a community of practice for, kind of people in the same profession. You can call it anything else. They're just very simple ways. And I'm just going back to the last month's webinar on social media. One of the things, you need to do in this very well-connected digital world we live in is how do you even build networks when the world is you're on social media, you follow people, but you just follow, you're not also interacting. You can also build networks using LinkedIn. Get on LinkedIn, kind of see who are the friend of a friend. And even like back to the question on job hunting, when you're job hunting, one of the easy things to do is actually go on LinkedIn and see within your connections, who are the people within your connections that work in some organizations that you're interested in. That's an easy way to also network. you reach out to, you know, those connections and say, look, I'm interested in working somewhere. This is when you built a relationship with them, not just a cold call. You know, reach out. I can reach out to Kemi and say, look, I have an interest in working in this organization, and I see you know a couple of people there. Can you make that connection for me? So those are some other practical tips and ways to also use that professionally or even in your business. Comment, questions?
All right. I think we have a chat, something in the chat box. Let's see.
Yeah. So this is a really great question around how to use LinkedIn. So a couple of things, and I can do a whole session on how to use LinkedIn, but there are a couple of things. Identifying, you know, this is the intentionality I spoke about, being intentional as to, you know, your career or building a ministry, and looking at the people within your existing network. Or maybe you already recognize that, oh, there's some organizations that you're interested in. So maybe one way to do it is look at those organizations, then go within your network to see if someone or a couple of people within your networks are connected to people in those ministries or organizations. So you make a list of that, and then you start reaching out to your connections to ask for the referral. So that's one way to do it. But one thing I always suggest to people, you can also do the cold calling where you just connect with someone on LinkedIn. I always say, do not connect with someone on LinkedIn just clicking on connect. Put in a short note to say, hi, Jukwe, really nice to meet you. Or we met at such and such event. Or if it's not a referral, oh, I read your profile, very interesting. You know, I have an interest in this ministry that you're developing or building. I would like to connect with you to kind of get a sense of what your experience has been so far. That way, you're not making any requests. You're just trying to kind of understand what they've done so far. And you use that to have a conversation with them. And then the next time you can make a request. Because sometimes what we typically tend to do is we send the cold calling connection or connecting with somebody, there's no note. A lot of times people do not respond to that, apart from if they're influencers who you're just following. But if it's just a one-on-one connection, you'll probably not hear from them. Or secondly, if you just go straight to, oh, I see that you're running this ministry or you're a leader in this organization, I would like to get to know you and ask your advice, they would also not react or respond to that. So there's the piece about how do you become a giver? Or it could just be, oh, I saw this really interesting article. I see it's an area you're interested in. So I'm just kind of I'm sharing it with you. You can do a lot. You probably would do a lot of those. And then somebody will come around one day and say, oh, thank you so much for sharing that. I've heard a lot of stories from people who have built networks through just sharing research or sharing information or kind of finding a common interest that they have with, you know, either a ministry or someone who is a leader in an organization. Those are some of the tips I would suggest to use with LinkedIn. Be very intentional. Have a good intro. Think about ways you can serve that the other person or ministries need. If you know events that'll be useful, you can share it with those people. And those are easy ways to use LinkedIn to build a network or create a network or even maintain a network. I hope that helps.
All right.
We have a lot of people that we haven't heard from. Well, feel free to send a few more comments, but just some things to wrap it up.
All right.
Intentionality. Be intentional. It's very important to go back and really think about who are the people within your network and who are the people within your network that, you know, don't know each other, and think about ways to connect them. So be a connector. The other point, again, I would emphasize that it's so much easier when you're a giver to build and develop and maintain your networks. So be a giver, not a taker. Think about, build a different networking group. If you're part of one, think about something else. Again, it has to be something that is of interest to you. One point I'll make here is network in a way that is authentic to you. It is very important. If you're an introvert, network in a way that makes sense to you. Do not try to become an extrovert, because people really do see through when you're not being real. So it's really important to even think about that. If throwing a dinner or a brunch is not something that comes easy for you, it could also be create a group of people that, create a book club, whatever it is that you're passionate about. Use your passion or use your hobbies to create those networks. It could be through a running group. Get to know somebody in your running group this week. That's, kind of one of the things I would do, it in a way that feels real to you. Think about your weak ties again, your former colleagues. Those are part of your network. Your network is not only the people you know, former colleagues, former schoolmates, of your friend of a friend, like I said before. Think about re-engaging with them. And also think about easy ways to stay in touch. It's lose touch. Hey, once in a while, hey, Kemi, how are you doing? I haven't heard from you in a while. What's the new thing happening in your world? The great thing about Google is you can find a lot of different questions that you can use as icebreaker if you want to email someone or call someone. I really hope that, in the next month or so, you would really think about, adding some new connections or re-engaging with some contacts from the past, or even going as far as hosting a networking thing for your current group of friends. So this is some of the things. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Edith. This has been amazing. I've just been quietly taking notes down, and I'm so excited and grateful for the tips that you shared, and especially for somebody like me that I am one of those introverts that, when I hear the N word, sometimes it gets a little bit scary for me, but by the grace of God, we continue to improve. Just, in the interest of, we only have a couple of minutes, but also we have a couple of closeout items. Before we close out. So first is, I want to find out if we have anybody who is joining an EPR webinar for the very first time. Anybody? If you can just type in the chat group if this is your very first time joining one of our webinars. We don't have any newbies. Okay. Interesting. All right. Well, oh, hey, hi, Ife, how you doing? Nice to have you. And, I'm just gonna ask you thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for, just responding to the invite. So I'd like to ask, who invited you? Did someone invite you? Yeah, and who was it? And I can unmute if you want to speak. Let's see, let me see if I can unmute you. I have just unmuted you if you want to speak.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Yeah, I saw it through the Instagram page. So I've been seeing the one from last month. I couldn't make it, but this one I knew I could make it. So I'll open.
Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. Since I am the facilitator, and I wanted to have a giveaway for the person that invited you, we are gonna have you win the giveaway today.
Oh.
And we do have a giveaway. So first of all, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you during one of our next sessions. And please spread the word. I hope you have been blessed today. And the giveaway is one of my favorite books on networking. It's called Never Eat Alone. Very powerful resource. And so we'll reach out to you to get your information. Congratulations, and you have won a prize for today. So looking forward to seeing you again, and we'll connect with you to make sure that you get it.
Sure. Thank you.
All right. No, thank you. Thanks for joining. Really, really appreciate it. And looking forward to continuing to engage with you.
Sure.
All right. Thank you. All right. So quick couple of items before we close out again. We appreciate all of you for joining us today. As usual, we just like to do a couple of wrap-up items to, I know Edith has touched on a couple of things here and given us some suggestions. I'd like you to just take a moment as I'm going to pull up a feedback survey, but just type it, indicate one key takeaway that you had, and I know some of you have started typing those things, and then think about, an action that you will commit to take within the next 24 to 48 hours. You did an awesome job just articulating, a few things that you can do. We want to make sure that each time you come for a session, a webinar with EPR Women's Network, you make a decision, a quality decision to do one thing differently. So what is that one thing? So for me, I will share with you what I wrote down is that I have a lot of weak ties out there. Previous connections and all that, and as you go through seasons of life, and people that have just been amazing to me that were in my network in the past, still in, but I've not really engaged with them often. So how do I reach out back to at least 3 of them within the next couple of days? So write that down quickly, and I think I have some stuff in the chat box. Please send us the challenge. Great. Okay, so we have an EPR Women's Network challenge. We want to reach out to 1 new person within the next 30 days. Okay, sounds good, PN. We got that. All right, so that's our challenge. Leverage my closest network, my weak ties. I tend to join 2 new networks. Great, great. Thanks, CA. All right, so keep them coming. As you do that, I'm going to launch a survey poll for us to quickly give us some feedback. We need your feedback. We want to understand how we can do better going forward. So if you can please indulge us and just respond to this poll survey that I just shared very quickly. It should take you 2 minutes to just respond to the poll. Can you all see the poll? Because I don't see any responses yet. Oh, great. I see. Great, great. Thank you. Thank you. Please fill it out. This is very important to us. We are all about improving our delivery, improving the topics, and how we connect with you. So we look at this data every single time we plan for our next event. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you for keeping on, for continuing to type in your plans. You're reaching out. Danshell Jones said she's going to reach out to a new connection that she has been nervous about reaching out to. Great, great. I pray that you will have that courage to reach out to them. Please, I only have 6 people who have responded to the feedback poll. Please respond. We need your feedback. Thank you. As you do that, just a quick reminder, we do have monthly webinars. And so next month, we will have another webinar. We'll be sharing information around the topic. It's going to be on Saturday, May 18th, same time. And we will share more information. You will receive a recording of this session, and you will receive information about the next webinar via email because of course, we've captured your email through your registration. So just want to say a huge thank you to every single one for joining us. From all of us at EPR Women's Network, I am just a representative of a team of amazing ladies that put this together every single month. And I just want to encourage you that, as we've learned a lot of tips here, and one of the things that as we're thinking about this topic and everything, I found this African proverb. It says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. And what really stood out to me was, and as we're connecting it back to some of the things that Edith has shared with us today, is about being a giver. It's about being beyond yourself, going beyond yourself, making an impact on other people, influencing others, giving to them, pouring into them. And that is what takes us far. It might sound counterintuitive because you're the one that wants to go far. You want to go far. But really, for you to really, really go and maintain that momentum, you need that community. And I pray that as you have learned one or two things here today, you will be able to leverage that to be able to go far. All right. And that ends our session. Again, thank you so much, Edith. Thank you so much to everyone who has joined us today. Have a lovely afternoon and happy Easter.
Happy Easter. Bye.
Bye.